Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Angela Brennan and this video is about Spellbinders While About You Stamp and Die Bundle from Simon Hurley. It's a layering stamp set of animals with complementary sentiments and coordinating dies for the animals. It's very easy to use and fun to use. What I like about it is the layering that is so easy to do, but more importantly for me is the really coordinating or complementary sentiments that goes with those animals there. So you've got sentiments like I'm wild about you, no one measures up to you, earned your stripes, so glad I spotted you, go get them tiger, you're great. So I like all the sentiments and it comes in nice bold font that is easy to stamp and die cut. You can use any of your dies that you have to die cut the sentiments or just cut it out by hand. I use my MISTI here to do my stamping because it's ideal, especially when you have a stamp cell that you want to do layering, but also when I use my dye ink or my crisp dye ink from Autonew, I tend to double stamp. So I'm using my stamp conditioning eraser just to get rid of that sheen on a new stamp so it really can hold on to the ink when I apply it. And I lightly tap the VersaFine Nocturne ink on it, close the door of my MISTI and use my stamp press tool to press that ink into the card. Clean the stamp with my stamp chamois, return it to the packaging, and I'm taking the second layer. This is so easy to layer on or to add onto the stamped image, and I'm doing the same thing. So I continue to stamp using various colors. Now, when it comes to stamping these animals, you can either use realistic colors or you can just use colors that are slightly colorful. It's really up to you. And one of the things about the stamp, especially the more solid stamps, which is the second layer, using your finger or using a stamp conditioning eraser to remove the sheen is important so you get that ink laying on the stamp very nicely. Here I'm using a mini blending tool just to put a slightly darker tinge so there'll be a darker shadow on the animal. So sometimes you just need to do it twice to make sure it's nice and bold. So there's a differentiation in the color. And I do that now all across. So if you can see the most solid part of the stamp, which is usually the second stamp, I tend to use the stamp conditioning eraser because it's got more solid parts and it's really important that you get that sheen removed. And for the zebra here, it's not much of a thing you need to do. In fact, I think for some of that, I don't use the second layering stamp because I think it doesn't need it. So I tend to leave it out for one or two of it. Now for the giraffe, because it's quite a flexy stamp, to make sure I can die cut it, this is a trick I've learned where I put the die on the paper, then I put the stamp, and then I pick up the stamp with the door of the MISTI. So that way I'm going to be stamping the giraffe nice and straight and it's going to be easy for me to die cut because the stamped image will be aligned to the die, the coordinating die. And here I'm just adding the second layer, which is going to give it a little bit of color. And this leopard here, it's really, really adorable. So I actually stamped the second layer and you will see me do a card where I don't quite use the typical leopard colors. I use slightly different colors and I'll show you later on where even the zebra, I do a colorful stripes of the zebra. So it doesn't have to be realistic. It's really up to you. You can make your animals whatever color you want, even if it's to coordinate with your background. You are the creator, so just go for it. Here I'm using the coordinating dies, and what I love about having coordinating dies is I die cut quite a few additional just the shapes and I will be layering them up. So by the time I do, I think a couple of layers for each of my die cuts, it's almost like a chipboard. And I do like having that dimension and that sturdy thickness when I place it onto the card front because I intend to do some ink blending and some embossing for all of my backgrounds. Now, before I go anywhere and do anything further, I'm going to show you how I do the zebras. You need a stamping platform to do this, and you also need a few small blending brushes so you can place the color or you can apply the color onto the stamp bit by bit. It takes a little bit of time, but I think it looks lovely once you're done. So I'm just using the blending brushes here and placing different colors onto the stamp and stamping it, and you can see the image of the zebra you can see it emerge as you add the colors on. And some of the colors overlap, it doesn't matter. So if you see some of those greens and blues overlap and you get a more deep green, so a slightly deeper green or a teal, and that's okay as well. And there you go, you get a nice colorfully striped zebra. Why not? Here I'm doing that tiger here. I'm going to show you a little bit close up where I use a lighter orange, and because the Altenew crisp dye inks come in sets of 4 different hues, I think it's easier for me to pick the colors I want to use, and I'm just using the darker orange to just add some additional shadow to the edges of that body, and I'll use an even darker orange for the nose or that front and the face, the bit that overlaps the face of the tiger. Just a bit of differentiation. I think it just adds that image when you do that. So that's kind of what I decided to do, and now I'm going to move on to the sentiments. As you can see, a whole many animals that I've already die cut and layered, so they're quite thick chipboards of die cut images there. So here I've just die cut a circle here, and I'm going to be stamping the sentiment, "You've earned your stripes." And I tend to use VersaFine Clear black ink or Nocturne ink to do that, because I always like to layer it with some embossing powder, because the ink will remain wet for a little while, and I use my fine, super fine clear embossing powder to do some embossing because it gives it a nice shine, and I like that. So I'm using a little wooden peg to hold on to that card because I don't want to burn my fingers. So I just use the heat tool, and I always start from the back so it doesn't blow away all that super fine embossing powder, and I've got a nice shiny sentiment, which I'm also going to layer with another layer of that circle that I die cut. So here are all the sentiments that I've already stamped and done some embossing as well with clear embossing powder, so there's a nice shine onto it. And I use the notch corner frames as well as my precision layering A2 die set to die cut some of them. And here are all the colorful die cuts that I've done. I'm using my stamp wheel because I'm using the sticky mat to do some embossing. I'm using distress inks to do this. You see me doing ink blending with distress inks or distress oxide inks many times here. So I'm just doing a quick ink blend here of various greens, and then I'll use that embossing folder I just showed you to do the embossing. Now, I don't show you, I think my video didn't capture how I did the clouds, but again, you've seen me do clouds on my cards a few times before. So what I've done is just sprinkled some water behind the embossed panel, and then I put it through the embossing machine. So this is a 2D embossing folder, so you follow the sandwich and there you go. And I always let the embossed panel dry inside the embossing folder with heavy objects onto it, so it will dry nice and straight. So this is a different embossing folder, and these are all embossing folders from previous month's embossing folder, that 3D and 2D embossing folders of the month from previous Spellbinders Club kits. And here I've gone to town pulling out all my embossing folders because I had it in my mind I'm going to do ink blending for all the panels and doing embossing. So it took me a little while, but I like ink blending. I do enjoy ink blending, which is why I kind of went for it and decided to explore the whole ink blending. So some of it I've used distress oxide inks, and some of it I've used distress inks, and I've just coordinated all of the colors accordingly. So this one here I've used the old Spellbinders embossing folder called Puff Dotty. I couldn't find it on the website, so you may already have it. So use any. I just wanted to use it because I think it kind of blends with that sentiment of spotted leopards, and the sentiment talks about I'm glad I spotted you. So I think it went well together. And here are my colorful leopards that I went ahead and did earlier on. So I'm using my T-roller to make sure the sentiment is nice and straight. And after this, I decided to do some splatters. And I used the watercolor mixing set. So it's got a black, white and gold, I think. So I'm using the black here to do some splats here, and I'm using my splat box to kind of protect my craft space. Now before, you must be patient and let it dry. So I make a bit of a boo-boo here by kind of smudging one of those bits of paint that doesn't quite dry, as you can see here. So I later on, when everything dries, I do add a sentiment there, stay fierce or something like that. So here are all the cards that I've created, and put them together. Very simply, I've just added a thin foam sheet behind each of the embossed panel, and I've just adhered it to an A6 card. So that's the size of card I tend to use, which measures 14.8 centimeters by 10.5 centimeters. And there I've put the another sentiment, stay fierce, to kind of cover the little dot, smeared dots that I had there. So some of them I've done, I think most of them I've done splatters. I just liked that look behind the card, a background, after I've done the ink blending and embossing. I like the colorful backgrounds. Let me know what you think. I hope this video has inspired you. There are so many other ways, and I kept the animals all quite together or separate. You can mix up the animals in your cards. You can put the tigers with the zebras or the leopards. It's totally up to you. So you can go to town with it. So I like this set because it's very easy to use, and it can create some lovely cards. Here are close-up pictures of all the cards that I've created. Let me know what you think of the cards. I love hearing from you. I love your comments. Do subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos that I'll create with Spellbinders products. I do the Spellbinders club kits every month, and you can see them on my YouTube channel, Angela Brennan Creations. So do check them out. I did recently post all my 5 videos for the September Spellbinders club kits. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll catch you in my next video. Do take care and happy crafting.